BMRC is my connection to African American history.
It's central. It is critical
to wanting to be able to preserve things for future generations.
It is incredibly important to get us to a closer, more accurate account of history.
There's so much information, and unless you have somebody that's pushing it, it'll be lost.
The Black Metropolis Research Consortium is a group of 26 libraries, archives, and museums who look to locate, preserve, and give access to records that document the Black experience.
We're really excited about bringing folks together in the same room, from foundations, big libraries like your Northwesterns and University of Chicago's, and smaller institutions such as Shorefront, together with members of the community to facilitate listening and exchange.
We officially begun in 2006 by Danielle Allen, who was the dean at the University of Chicago.
In the early days, everybody had its own individual collections, and no one knew what they had unless you're researching a particular topic or subject matter. The whole idea was to let the broader community know what these institutions had, and more importantly, how to use it.
The Vivian G. Harsh Research Collection is the largest collection of African American history and literature in the Midwest, and the second largest of its kind in the country. Vivian G. Harsh, she was the first Black library director of a CPL branch. At a time that we now know as the Great Migration, the African American community was expanding in what we know as the Bronzeville area. This collection is a city asset and a national treasure because we reflect the history of all of Black Chicago, if you will, no matter if it's South Side or West Side. We have the collection of Timo Black, who was a noted public historian and sociologist.
When discussions were being first held to start the Black Metropolis Research Consortium, one of the first places that was brought into that discussion was the Vivian Harsh. We are just so proud of that collection, what it represents in terms of the generations of Black memory workers and archivists and librarians who've been very conscious and intentional about documenting Black experiences.
The spark that made me work toward establishing Shorefront, I went to a local historical organization and asked to see what they may have on early Black history. And the archivist at that time pulled out 3 file folders labeled colored. And I just kind of went, time to tell our own story.
We've been here in Evanston for 25 years. People want to connect with parts of themselves that they don't know. Their family members who are no longer here. Artifacts that are clothing, to paintings, to old newspapers.
The BMRC has been very instrumental in helping us acquire grants. The BMRC has the studies behind that, the backing to say, yes, this is a worthy organization to fund.
The BMRC, in order to fulfill its mission, has programs including internships for undergraduates and for master's students, workshops and seminars for people in the community who have materials that they think might be important. We had our summer fellowships for academics to do research.
Northwestern University's library is a member institution of the BMRC. Our relationship looks like the BMRC helping to promote some of our collections that deal with Black archives. We've also worked with them to host student interns over the summer through their Archie Motley internship program, which is an incredible opportunity to give back and encourage undergraduate and graduate students to pursue archives as a career path.
At the University of Illinois at Chicago, I look at a couple of things through critical race theory. One of those being the relationship between housing and education, other being the relationship between schooling systems and prisons. What I wanted to do with my fellowship was to use BMRC's archives to now access those spaces. So what were folks saying about education and the problems in particularly the 60s and 70s? And then what were people saying about housing in the same time period, particularly public housing?
As a Black woman in Chicago, I wanted to work with collections that were related to African American history. I also started to look around me while I was in library school and realized how white the professions were. I wanted to challenge my colleagues because of this sort of representation of Black women in archives as subjects. It made it challenging for us to progress through history and sort of fill in those spaces that were needed as far as processing collections, managing collections that were related to African American history.
It is incredibly important to preserve African American history because there are still efforts to erase that history and to invalidate the contributions of African Americans.
Now there is a pathway for folks to actually engage and interrogate and preserve those things, those moments that we may sometimes think to be mundane.
One of the things I see as viable for the future of the Black Metropolis Research Consortium is broadening out beyond the Chicagoland area. We've become a trusted voice within the city and within the state. And I'd love to see what kind of magic we can make happen in other regions.
As the BMRC is approaching its 20th anniversary, we really are trying to expand, become more sustainable, be able to increase our reach. We need the funding to do that, and we're looking for support from the community.
The BMRC is doing all this work for us, with us, and to build the community.
BMRC means a lot to me.
I'm really thankful for the efforts of BMRC, not just to uplift the folks who are doing the work, but the commitment to making sure that these places are preserved and can be used.
What we're doing is not just for the institutions, it's for the community at large. And that way they get motivated, get inspired, and get excited about the roles that they can play.